Booth 7 had seen better days. The vinyl seat had a rip patched with duct tape, the formica table bore decades of coffee rings, and the flickering bulb overhead hummed like a tired memory. But at 6:32 a.m., just as the autumn sun began to stretch across the sleepy parking lot, it became the quiet epicenter of something much bigger than anyone inside the sunny diner could imagine. A woman entered carrying a baby. She was bundled in a shapeless hoodie, jeans that looked worn past their prime, and a scarf that tried to hide her face. But even in her anonymity, she moved with a careful purpose. In one arm she cradled the baby, 6 months old, maybe 7, the kind of soft-cheeked, milk-breathed child whose eyes wandered but whose silence hinted at exhaustion or hunger. She slid into booth 7 and waited. To the other patrons, the construction crew, the exhausted night nurse, the couple arguing over a pancake, the woman looked like any other single mom down on her luck. But to the staff she was trouble. It started with the hostess, who gave her a once-over, then decided to clean another table first. Then came Bryce. Bryce was the assistant manager. Early 30s, clean-cut with the constant expression of someone who thought life owed him more tips and fewer problems. He watched the woman settle in with narrowed eyes, not because she was suspicious but because she didn't look like she'd tip. He sent over Vanessa. Vanessa had been waitressing at Sunny for 5 years. She was good with customers, too. Good, Bryce thought, and always seemed to care a little too much. Bryce reminded her, again, to be quick and don't linger when she walked toward the booth. The woman ordered tea. Just tea. She rocked the baby slowly, glancing out the window like she was waiting for someone who wouldn't come. Vanessa noticed her hand shake slightly as she poured sugar into the tea. She noticed the baby's bottle in her purse, half full, no formula in sight. But she didn't ask questions. Instead, she smiled. "If you need anything else, I'm okay," the woman interrupted softly. Her voice had a tired edge, almost rehearsed. Meanwhile, behind the counter, Bryce was grumbling to the cook. "Bet she leaves without paying. Should have kicked her out the moment she walked in." "She just got here, man," said the cook, Tony, flipping eggs without looking up. "I've seen the type. Broke, desperate, probably using the baby to get free stuff." Vanessa returned to refill coffee at another table and overheard. She didn't say anything yet, but her face twitched. Over the next half hour, the woman barely touched her tea. She made soft cooing sounds at the baby, then wiped at her own eyes when she thought no one was watching. The place filled up. Regulars came and went. No one paid her any mind, except Vanessa. It was around 7:15 when things turned. Bryce approached the booth, clipboard in hand, fake smile glued on. "Ma'am, I'm gonna have to ask." "I already paid," she said quietly. "Vanessa ran my card." Bryce blinked. "Did she?" Vanessa appeared like a ghost behind him. "Yes, she did. Check the terminal." Bryce hesitated, then scoffed and walked off. Vanessa placed a small paper bag on the table. "I packed a sandwich for later, and milk for the baby." The woman looked up, really looked. "You didn't have to do that." "I know," Vanessa said, "but I wanted to." There was something about kindness when you least expect it. The kind that isn't loud or filmed or posted for likes. The kind that shows up quietly, slides across the table, and walks away before you can thank it properly. Vanessa didn't know the woman's name. She didn't know the baby was real, but not hers. She didn't know she was being watched. Because the woman in the hoodie, her name wasn't Katie, like the receipt said. It was Mariana Grant, as in Mariana Grant Whitmore, owner and CEO of Whitmore Hospitality Group, the parent company that had quietly acquired Sunny Diner 6 months ago in a multi-franchise deal. Place her late father used to frequent before the money, before the mergers, before she was old enough to understand what equity meant. She'd grown up in those booths, watched people cry into pie, propose over pancakes, argue over the check. Her father used to say, If you want to know how the world's doing, listen to a waitress. So when the quarterly reports came in looking fine on paper, but with rising complaints from anonymous staff about racism, wage theft, and managerial abuse, Mariana decided not to schedule a meeting. She decided to put on a hoodie and show up with a baby. By noon, Mariana was gone. She left quietly, walked right out with her fake diaper bag and her real notes, and no one looked. Twice. Vanessa didn't know her name. Bryce didn't care. Tony never even saw her face. But by the next morning, everything started to shift. It began with a call. Regional HR showed up unannounced. Not to talk to Bryce, to observe. They took notes, watched the cameras, listened to how people spoke when they didn't think the boss was watching. By day 3, 2 silent corporate auditors were eating waffles at different booths, pretending not to notice when Bryce rolled his eyes at Vanessa. On day 4, Bryce was called into the back office. He didn't come out smiling. On day 5, a new flyer appeared on the break room bulletin board. It said, "Integrity begins when no one is watching. Your voice matters. If you've experienced discrimination, wage theft, or mistreatment, report anonymously. No retaliation allowed. Protected by law." Vanessa stared at it for a long time. Then came the new manager. He introduced himself as Calvin, said he'd worked his way up from dish pits and cross-state diners, said he believed in dignity over drive-thrus, and that good people don't burn out because they're lazy. They burn out because no one ever thanks them. Tony liked him immediately. Vanessa wasn't sure. Until the day he called her into the office and said, "Someone very high up noticed what you did last week." Vanessa frowned. "What I did? With the baby, and the tea, and the sandwich?" She blinked. "How?" Calvin slid an envelope across the desk. Inside, a personal letter, handwritten, from Mariana Grant. It read, "You didn't know who I was, but you chose to help. You treated me with respect, and my child, even if he wasn't mine. That moment told me everything I needed to know about this place and the people in it." There was a check inside, too. A bonus. Vanessa stared at it for several seconds. "I don't want to be rewarded for doing the right thing," she said softly. "You're not," Calvin replied. "You're being seen." Later that evening, after close, she sat in booth 7 with Tony. No customers, just the hum of the neon sign outside. "Feels different now," she said. "Cleaner." He nodded. "Like we might actually matter." Vanessa tapped the table. "Still got the same duct tape," she said, smiling faintly. Tony laughed. "Maybe that's on purpose." Vanessa looked at the window, where the autumn wind moved through the empty parking lot. She wondered if she'd see that woman again, if she'd know her if she did. "You ever wonder who walks through those doors?" she asked. Tony shrugged. "All the time." She sipped her coffee, then turned to him. "What if I told you we were working for a ghost?" Tony raised a brow. "Like, spooky ghost?" "No. Like, a woman who watched everything, took notes, and never once broke character." Tony leaned back. "I'd say I hope she saw me flip those eggs right." Meanwhile, across town, in a quiet corner office with no windows, Mariana sat at her desk. She flipped through the report. Manager demoted. Vanessa promoted to senior floor supervisor. All staff enrolled in new anti-discrimination and labor compliance training. Back pay for undercounted shifts initiated. She set it down, then opened a drawer. Inside, the baby bottle, still half full. She smiled. But just as she was about to close the drawer, her assistant knocked. "Ma'am, we've had another anonymous report. Different location. A theater this time. Same franchise. Worse conditions." Mariana looked up. Slowly, she reached for her scarf. The same hoodie. The same plan. "I'll go," she said simply. "But ma'am," the assistant began. "Shouldn't we?" Mariana just smiled. "No one sees the truth until you walk in without a title." She grabbed the baby bag, closed the door behind her. The rain had just begun when she crossed the parking lot. Not the angry kind of rain, just enough to fill the cracks in the pavement and slide off the regal Pines Theater marquee, blurring the faded red letters. Now hiring evening ushers. No experience needed. Perfect. That's what she needed them to think. The woman, hooded, soaked at the sleeves, stepped inside without fanfare. She wasn't here for popcorn or nostalgia. She came with a plan, a test, and this time no baby to soften the edges. She asked the teenager at the register for an application. He blinked like she'd asked for a time machine, then mumbled something and went to get the manager. That's when Arlo stepped out. Floor manager, lean frame, clipboard permanently attached to his hand, face carved with suspicion. He looked her over once, eyes catching on the water dripping from her sleeves. You got experience? She nodded. Ever cleaned up puke? Twice, she said flatly. He stared a beat longer, then shrugged. Fine, come back tonight. 5 to close. Black shirt. No, drama. Trial shift. She turned to leave. Oh, and he added, don't think you get paid tonight. First night's unpaid. Training policy. She paused, nodded again. Didn't say a word by 4:58 p.m. She was back. Hair tied up, shirt tucked, shoes practical. No perfume, no pretense. She was treated like dust in the corner. Seen, tolerated, but not acknowledged. Arlo shoved a rag in her hand, told her to hit theater 2. Some kid had spilled nachos and melted chocolate across 6 seats. Smelled like regret and foot sweat. She cleaned without complaint. That was the first mark in her ledger. The night rolled on. Trevor, the night shift concession lead, tossed her a look that made it clear she wasn't welcome. When she asked how to refill the IC machine, he sighed so loud it turned heads. When she suggested counting change twice to avoid drawer errors, he smirked. You corporate plants and your perfectionism. Relax. She didn't argue. She watched. She listened. She wrote it all down in her mind. At 9:15, a family came in late. Tired mom, 3 kids, stress in every motion. Their total was $42. Trevor rang them up for $47.05. She noticed. You overcharged them, she whispered. Yeah, he replied. So, it'll even out. Or they'll get a free soda next time. You can't do that. Trevor leaned in. And you can't be a narc. But here we are. She kept her mouth shut. But inside, her file was growing. In the break room, they talked about her like she wasn't there. New girl's too serious. She looks like a guidance counselor. Bet she's a narc. She kept sipping her water. Carl, the oldest usher, sat beside her. Quiet guy, 63, limped slightly. He smiled at her, kindly. Don't let him get to you. Place chews people up. If they see you give a damn, they test. How much? She looked at his hands, calloused, stained. Years of labor for minimum wage. How long you been here? She asked. 21 years, he said. Ever get a raise? Once. Then they restructured the bonuses. Took it back with new math. She didn't respond, but something in her chest tightened. At closing, Arlo tossed her a clipboard. Sign this. Confirms you completed your trial shift. No pay as stated. But hey, if we like you, you're on next week's schedule. She scanned the fine print. Unpaid. Waives right to claim back pay. Acknowledges training time is not work under company definition. Illegal. Exploitative. Corporate poison passed off as protocol. She handed the clipboard back. I'd rather not sign something that breaks labor law. Arlo laughed. Then I guess you don't want the job. No, she said, standing straighter. I don't want the lie. And she left. By noon the next day, things shifted. A white SUV pulled into the lot. Corporate plates. Out stepped 2 compliance auditors and 1 HR rep with a file in her hand titled WHG Field. Review, Regal Pines Theater. They didn't announce themselves. They just watched. Arlo started sweating by 3 p.m. Trevor was pulled aside by 5. By 6, Carl was called into the office. Not to be scolded, but to be listened to. By Friday, new posters were stapled in the break room. All employees must be paid for all hours worked. No unpaid trial shifts. Any retaliatory behavior by managers will result in immediate termination. Trevor was gone. So was the clipboard. Carl was promoted. And every staffer got a printed memo with policy clarification and a signature. M. H. Grant, CEO, Whitmore Hospitality Group. No one had ever seen that name before. But Carl, he started to wonder. A week later, Mariana returned. No disguise, no mop, just herself. She waited at the counter, then asked for a medium popcorn and a small Coke. Arlo wasn't there to serve her. The new shift manager was Vanessa. Yes, that Vanessa from the Sunny Diner. Vanessa blinked when she saw her, then smiled. You came back. Mariana nodded. Vanessa handed over the popcorn, then quietly said, They don't know who you are yet. I know, Mariana said. Are you gonna tell them? Not yet. She turned to walk away. Carl appeared from the hallway, wiping his hands on a towel. His eyes met hers. Recognition. Flickered, faint, then certain. He approached slowly. Excuse me, he said. Have we met? Mariana smiled. Not exactly. Carl hesitated, then extended his hand. Whatever you did, thank you. She took it. No thanks needed. Just pay it forward. He nodded. Always. That night, Mariana sat in D12 again. Same seat. Empty theater. Credits rolling over an indie film about second chances and small towns. She watched in silence. No disguise. No clipboard. No baby in her arms this time. Just a woman who once sat silently in a diner booth and learned the truth about who people really were when no one was looking. Now she was building something else. Not just policy or profit, but protection, dignity, a future for the Carls, the Vanessas, and the invisible ones still being overworked in the shadows of the places they help shine. As the final scene faded to black, she whispered to herself, barely audible, Justice isn't loud. It shows up quietly and stays.